I started it because I have a 5-year-old son, and I'm of Mexican descent, but I was so disconnected from Mexico. Like my family, my grandmother spoke Spanish to me, and she wanted me to speak English to her. So like I wasn't like my Spanish sucked. It's still not amazing, but it's definitely gotten better. But I was like, I want my son to speak Spanish. I want him to know Mexico. I think I said it actually in the podcast I did with Miguel, like, you don't know where you're going if you don't know where you've been. And I think that's like so important, especially as minorities.
Welcome to the Positive People Posse Living Room. I'm your host, Dom Green, life enthusiast and marketer of Positive People Posse. This episode is brought to you by Positive People Posse 3P Media. We are your digital marketing company. We have a solution for you from large to small. And today's special guest is Steven Torres. Steven, thanks for being on.
Thanks, man. Cheers. Good to be on. Thank you for having me, and thank you for reaching out.
Hey man, you're in proper form too. I think you're on brand. You got the drink in hand. I also like the listening audience cannot see this, but he's got a pretty ironic sweatshirt on that says Times New Roman, and it's actually in Times New Roman. So,
have you heard of this brand before?
I have not.
So it's a Parisian brand. It's fairly new. Everything is like made like. They don't have stock stuff. Like they make it to order, and everything is recycled cotton. And their whole idea is like Times New Roman is like the simplest, chicest, font, because
that's
it's
awesome.
Yeah.
So like repurposing,
reducing,
reusing. I'm all about all that.
Definitely.
So tell our listening and viewing audience what you do.
It's funny you say that. Well, you were asking, and I think I do a lot of things. Before, up until about 8 years ago, I had always worked in restaurants, and then I think it was like roughly 8, 9, 10 years ago, I was just like, I don't know if I want to own a restaurant, because that's usually like food and beverage. That's their path, right? Like you're like, okay, I work in these amazing restaurants so that I could eventually open my own restaurant, and I just wasn't sure about like that, if that was going to be my path. So I was like, I started doing events and like conferences, and that really like picked up steam. And then about 4 years ago, I started the Mezcal Project, and that has just been like super amazing, because I started it because I have a 5-year-old son, and I'm of Mexican descent, but I was so disconnected from Mexico. Like my family, my grandmother spoke Spanish to me, and she wanted me to speak English to her. So like I wasn't like my Spanish sucked. It's still not amazing, but it's definitely gotten better. But I was like, I want my son to speak Spanish. I want him to know Mexico. Like I think I said it actually in the podcast I did with Miguel, like, you don't know where you're going if you don't know where you've been. And I think that's like so important, especially as minorities, like as people who have been marginalized for a really long time, to not be connected to your roots, I think is. Wait, can we swear on here?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
We keep it positive.
Yeah, for sure. But I think it's fucked up, like it's
Yeah.
not. And I, over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, I've been able to curate like a life that I'm proud of, that I'm excited to like be contributing to the world, to be taking care of my son. Like I said earlier, like, I've been married a couple of days ago was my 1-year anniversary. My wife's a doctor. Like, she's an amazing, badass woman.
Man, she sounds like she's out of your league, man.
Oh, totally. Totally.
No offense.
No, completely. No, you're.
But that's what you're supposed to do, right?
Right. I mean, you want someone to be. I always say, like, she makes me want to be better, and like if you don't think that the person you're with is better than you, or you're not like trying to be, like, I'm
trying to level up, dude.
I'm just gonna say, yeah, I'm trying to get on her level now.
For sure.
But yeah, so that, and then the podcast, we we just started it. We just launched the day before the election. I have like spent my whole life connecting people. So this year has been extremely difficult because I didn't have that connection with people.
Yeah, man.
So it
I
was like, okay,
totally, I
yeah,
totally agree to understand that path too, because it sounds like, first of all, going back to your first statement about, your identity, your culture, your upbringing. When I did listen to your podcast, and that's how we're connected, audience, is I was listening to a podcast, and I just, I felt like Stephen was a person who's willing to be open and having these conversations. And for our listening audience, talking to another minority entrepreneur, businessman, I just see a lot of similarities of what you've described about your past. And one thing being like, not being connected to, your ancestry, really.
right,
You're
right,
trying to find a way, trying to find a place. And this is, this brand, this Mezcal brand is your way to kind of be of service to your heritage, and
totally,
and
totally,
a lot of identity and heritage for not only just persons of color, but just the identity of being an American, right? I feel like a lot of people have lost heritage,
for
when
sure.
we break down the whole concept of like what is really white,
Well, yeah,
or what is really black, or
right,
whatever it could be. There's so many different shades of black. There's so many different origins of the sense of African, or Spanish, Spaniards,
right,
Hispanic,
right.
Puerto
Latino,
Rican.
Hispanic, like all that. Yeah, yeah,
There's
yeah.
so many
Totally,
different
totally,
things, and
totally.
so to pass generational knowledge down from just ancestor, or just coming from a person who has a lot more of that storytelling aspect, coming from your grandmother or whoever it may be. A lot of things get lost. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, I felt like that was a topic that I've never really thought about. You guys having that conversation, and for you to actually have that within this brand, like
Right.
I was very intrigued to talk to you
Well,
based on.
the thing that, like, I mean, the most important people in like the history of my life, right? Like obviously my wife, my son, my two grandparents. I've never met my father, so like my mother's parents, who were from Mexico. Well, my grandmother was from Mexico. Like my grandfather was like a great man, but he was like he was so proud to be American. Like he was so proud, and he like really instilled that in me. It was like, like we worked so hard to get here, to do this, to be able to give you these opportunities. Like be proud to be an American, which is true, and now, now that we're, it's a new day in America, it's okay to feel a little bit better now, but obviously there's a lot more work to be done. But like in that, like nowhere did he ever say be proud to be Mexican, you
Yeah,
know? And I think that, I don't know, like I really was just able to recently, like over the last like 5 or 6 years, really to understand that and be like, okay, like, because he'd always say, because, like when people say, oh, he's like African American, he's Mexican American, like he'd always be like, no, you're American Mexican. Like that's what he would say to me. And that's, again, it's great. It's great to be positive, to be proud of where you're from and or this. But like, if you don't know who you are, like
don't lose your identity is.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, he was a good man, or I loved him to death. But I think the messaging on that was a little not good for me,
Yeah, ultimately, in whatever climate we're in, no matter if we're in climate of turmoil or whatever it may be, when people say that they don't see color or whatever, I want to challenge that even more so these days and say, no, see color,
Right,
see the difference of like what makes America, what truly in the context of making America great is the context that everyone is different. Everyone brings something to the table. If Thanksgiving, were, such a real positive thing,
right,
we would have every single food out there and have a feast where everyone's contributing, not just the cranberry sauce that I hate, or the stuffing or dressing, whatever. I hate dressing. You know, I love tacos. Like we actually did a taco talk series for a while, and you know, but like I feel like my identity internally is I love Hispanic food, if anything. Like that's you know, so I love different aspects of culture, you know, that when people bring that color to the table, it's not just like you're not trying to act like you're trying to fit into society, you know, like you know, I feel like I can agree with you on that. Like I've been down that path where I felt like I had to fit in and almost you know, be more of the white kid, you know, to be accepted or whatever. And
well, that's the thing too, right? Like
it sucks.
Like you don't know my experience as a Hispanic male. I don't know a Black woman's experience. Like
so many different experiences.
You have to see, I mean, what is in front of you and what, you know, like, yes, it's an individual case by case basis and stuff, but I know for sure that the experience and even the racism that I've experienced in my life is different than what a Black woman, what a Black man has experienced, what a woman, any woman, you know, has experienced. Like, it's so different. And I think that's the part of like what I love to do is just to like talk to people and hear their stories, you know, and like hear, again, like you said, but very much with what you're saying, like just like hear who you used to be, who you think you are now, who you're trying to be, you know, because we all have a past, we all have, you know, we've all done crazy shit, but like, you know, are you trying to get better every day, right?
100%.
Like I think that's the most important thing.
And, you know, and that's a big part of this podcast is really understanding that, you know, like all these entrepreneurs have these stories, and, you know, it's really amazing just to hear just a glimpse of what you went through growing up in order to kind of parallel that with being an entrepreneur and being resilient and, you know, really having that story and bring that story into what is now your business. Yeah. You know, it's all one and the same. It's not, there is no divide when you're an entrepreneur. Like you don't really divide up your time from 9 to 5, you know, like you're constantly thinking, and it sounds like you're also trying to think for your son's future as well. You know, it's not just like, hey, I'm building this because I have the ego to say that I'm the best at this. It's like you're building something to hand down generationally. If anything.
I mean, it's funny. Like, I know we said we weren't going to talk about this, but I'm just going to say it because it's relevant. Like, I am going through a custody dispute right now with my son's mother, and we had a custody evaluator, and she's like, what's your work schedule? And I was very honest. I was like, I'm like 24/7. Like if I get an email at 3:00 in the morning from Mexico about like production not being good or something, I'm gonna answer that email. Like I'm gonna, like I am the engine. Like no one else is going to be pushed this like me. So if I'm honest with you, I am available anytime. And I think they use that against me. Like to be, you know, like it's just like, you have no idea what it is to be like a minority in America, like trying to do cool shit to try and make money for your family. And then COVID and like, just like, it's, I don't know. Like,
it can be hard to describe to an outsider. And, you know, a lot of our listeners are entrepreneurs or have aspirations to be entrepreneurs. And, you know, us being a marketing company, I say that often because like I realize that there's a relationship that needs to be built, and understanding someone's vision is really important. Knowing that you don't want this just to be another thing that sits on the shelf. You know, there's has a story, you know, there are people connected to it. And so you have to you are that engine, and you have to be that brand builder in order to, who else is it going to come from?
Right. And it's like, so there's a restaurant in New Orleans called Turkey and the Wolf. It's a really great restaurant. The owner is a friend of mine, and he is like the king of merch, and he is like the king of Instagram. Like he's, and he just like he says ridiculous shit. And I said to him, and I don't, I actually still to this day don't know if he thought he like took it as a diss, but it was actually a compliment. And I was like, if you don't believe your own bullshit, no one else is going to either.
Oh yeah.
And like it's the whole thing, right? Like you have to believe in yourself. You are the engine. You are the person who's going to power this. If you don't believe in yourself and what you're trying to sell or do, like no one else is going to, And like with, with the mezcal, I think humans in general. Everyone has ideas. It's a whole thing about executing and financing and all this stuff like that. But like I think most humans probably have 3 or 4 good ideas in their life that is going to make them money, right? And I was like, this is one of those 3 or 4 ideas. Like, I'm going to get that money.
Yeah.
Like I have like this. I'm not giving up on this. Like I have to keep going.
Gosh, it just really reminds me of like those ideas that I had that I never capitalized on. And it's like, hey, I should have done this, or man, you remember when that I had that idea and then that idea goes nowhere and then someone else has it. I feel like there's this idea exchange that happens where it is your time, at some point in time to do something more efficient or better. And you're going to be the first to do something, but that idea is already out there.
Right.
Someone else has already thought about it at a certain angle, but who's going to strike and how are they going to put their own spin on it?
Right. Yeah. Me and my wife were talking, or I was having a conversation with someone recently, and like, I can't remember, it was in a movie or something, like a business movie. And it was like, if you're not first, you have to be the best. And if like you have, like, there has to be the angle has to be that either you're the first to the market or you're the best example of that product. Like, that's it. There's no other option.
It's not, let's be average.
Right.
Why enter the market and say, hey, our mezcal, it's average.
Right. Yeah. Between you and I, like and I won't say the names, but there was a mezcal company run by some white folks, and it's fine, it's great. But I started asking them questions about like what they like, who are their producers, have you ever been to Oaxaca? No. And I was like, my buddy who is like become a really good ally, who has shameless plug, he has his brands called he had Nuestra Soledad and El Jolgorio. He recently left that, and his new brand is called Dish Bay. But I'll never forget, like the first day I met him, because he was just like, I think like he's so used to Americans or other people coming down and starting mezcal brands and not giving a fuck about the people of Oaxaca, and not giving a fuck about like what like mezcal and Oaxaca and tradition stand for. So he like said straight up to me, he was like, are you going to be one of those people who just takes from Oaxaca? Like, are you going to be? And I was like, no, man. Like, I really like, I'm doing this. Yes, I want to make money for sure. That is, at the end of the day, let's be honest with each other, right? Like, we all want to make money. But like, I am here because I want to be a part of this community. I want my son to be a part of this community. And we're like best friends now. He stays at my house when he does sales trips in New Orleans. I stay at his place in Oaxaca. Like, he was like, I guess maybe it was like a month. No, actually, no, it was in March, right before the lockdown.
Mm.
He was like, he's like, I know I don't tell you this enough, but like, you're legit. Like, you did not, you're not just.
You have to pass the test.
Right, and that takes years.
It's in our nature to be savages if we look at it from an American standpoint. It's not the game that I like to play myself. Like, I don't like the take, like that's what happened to the Indians, like
right.
The Indians have had it far worse than any, when you talk about just America, the shape of America, and they get slept on, and their contribution to society now you don't see a lot of representation.
It's like
of
casinos, right? Like
casinos. Like that's all they have, right?
It's so fucked up.
Like from the grand scheme of things, there's a lot more that they can bring to the table.
Oh yeah,
right?
no, 100%.
But like from that standpoint, they got shit on, and so I think it is the collaboration, that aspect of like being true to a brand or something that is, heritage or whatever it may be. I think it's rather than let's collaborate. Let's try to work together. Like, you don't have to try to replicate and do something and compete with someone who's like trying to bring culture into their product or whatever it may be. You can work with people in a way, like figure out a relationship that could be built. There's a relationship that could be built rather than right?
Again, like how you said how you found me through the Miguel, who's a friend, former WeWork founder, when I asked him, like, should there be billionaires? Like, do there need to be billionaires, really? Like, I don't know.
Well,
like,
I also heard you say, I believe in capitalism.
I do, which I do
as well. It's hard to figure out where we draw a line on anything. It's like, hey, sir, you're maxed. You cannot make any more.
Right.
And the $999.99 million.
Right. Whatever. I mean, and we, again, we talk about it in the thing, and I'll just say it so like your listeners can hear it. Like, should someone, which again was, Jeff Bezos' wife, like, who donated $2 billion to social action charities, which again in itself is an amazing, beautiful thing. I mean, I'm sure she probably did it for some tax purposes. I'm sure that had a little bit to do with it. But then she made it back by Sunday. She made the $2 billion back by Sunday. That is amazing and also so fucked up. Like,
it's very disparaging, like the opportunities. I think it's tougher to say, like, okay, I believe that there should be billionaires, but the true aspect of diversity of billionaires, I do not see.
Who is it?
It's
I mean, may I have one more drink? Thank you. No, and yeah, and it's also, I mean, again, very much how you were saying about representation, right? Like, there are and please, if you disagree with me, I know you'll tell me, but like, there's definitely more Black representation as far as like people with money than brown representation. Obviously, there's more brown representation than there's Indian representation, and the problem, it's great that people of color are making money for sure, but the whole idea that it's like sports or music, right? Like
entertainment, right?
Right.
It is,
and that's not. I mean, it's great that it's happening, but there has to be other avenues, right?
There are. I mean, and that's one thing that I've talked about in past podcasts is the fact that mentorship needs to be displayed on every level, and it doesn't matter what race or what my mentor could be, but to some degree I do need that representation. And so we have to really like think about how we can be involved in people's like truly give a fuck,
lift each other up.
Lift each other up, and not make it about one race or whatever. And so I think that's where it's really tough, is the fact that, people don't really get access to people the same way. And like, I've never had access to any capital raise or funding for our business, for my company or anything. But now it's to that point now that, we've got bigger, broader ideas, right?
Right.
And it will take that access to that capital in order for it to be fulfilled. And so, a lot of things, not having the access to certain types of capital, it hinders you to some degree. If you want to make that tremendous leap and what that looks like to be at the top of billionaires, you won't get there. unless,
Well, I mean, that's the
unless you
thing,
have those
right?
relationships.
I like, well, and by no means do I, or like, we have a lot of money, like, we're comfortable. But like, I, you know, I dropped out of college. Like, I worked in restaurants my whole life. Like, I don't know what well, actually, I do know. Like, I'll never forget it. I had never been, I was 20 years old. I had never been outside the United, I had never been out, besides Mexico. I had never been outside the United States. I had never been to Europe. And one of my best friends at the time had just inherited a bunch of money, and we lived together. We were roommates, and he was like, "Hey, we're moving. I bought a place. Like, you don't have to worry about rent. Like, just like really, I mean, just so generous, so generous." And he was like, "Hey, like, I want to go to Paris." And I was like, "I don't even have a passport." And he was like, "Well, I just booked you a flight to Paris. It leaves later today. Go figure out the passport shit." And I was like, okay. I mean, I want to go to fucking Paris, so I'm gonna figure it out. And of course, being who I am, I figured it out. And I got a passport in like 2 hours. And I went to Paris, and we went to like three or four three Michelin star restaurants. And it's like, it's like, I don't know, it's like once you taste the good life, it's like, oh,
There's no going back,
yeah,
right?
yeah. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna do what I can to make this happen for myself, so that one day. And my buddy was like, I don't know if it was 10 years older, but he was significantly older than me. And I was like, I'm gonna do what I can to make this happen for myself, so that I can pay it forward and do this for someone. And honestly, now, like, I have, like, my friends, my true friends who like I grew up with, like, I was like, "Hey, man, like, what are you doing this weekend?" And they're like, "Oh, nothing, blah blah, this that." Like, "You want to go to Miami? Like, I gotta be in Miami. I'll book your flight. We just stay in the same room." Like, I do that for people now. I do that for my cousins. I do that, like, to the ability to take care of people. I think is like one of the most amazing things, and to be able to show people new experiences, new places. I mean, I think that's one of the like greatest gifts, like, for both parties.
That aspect of travel is the biggest element that connects people to understanding that the world is bigger than their backyard.
Right.
Also, the relationships and the experiences, and being able to sit down at a table and share stories, and over food, over your past life, and things like our challenges, like being able to find commonality through travel and food
Right.
and through
Which is
mezcal.
huge. Yeah.
It's such a relationship build and bond experience that it's something that I crave. I miss. It's been very challenging to really connect with people in a different way, and I think this is leading on to a good question. Let's think about the world of possibilities, and so let's go back to when the ball dropped on 2020. What were your aspirations for 2020? You were thinking, you were like, oh man, this is going to be a great year. We're making moves with
So
our brand.
it's funny you say that, because, or you, I mean, that's a question. Well, and I can, it'll be a two-part answer.
Oh, you got plenty of time.
Professionally, like, I had literally just signed a deal with a friend's restaurant in Chicago to, like, basically buy almost the whole first shipment of the mezcal.
Wow.
So, like, I went to Mexico late February, early March. Me and my son, with my son, because I was like, I want to take it. I mean, he's that kid, like, Oaxaca, Mexico City. Like, he walks on the street, and people are like, Archie. My son's name's Archie. They're like, Archie, you're back! Like, it's fucking, and that was my goal, right? So professionally, it was okay. Like, we are going to fucking sell this. We basically got the whole first lot sold. Like, we're gonna launch with this amazing restaurant, and like we're just gonna go boom like from here, like we're gonna like fucking just go in. So 2019, I was in a trademark dispute for the mezcal in Mexico, and you cannot export a product in Mexico if you do not own the trademark. So that took 11 months. So
Wow.
it was stalled for like 11 months. We got the clearance in December 2019. Got the call from my buddy January 2020 that they were going to do a Mexico menu. That was going to launch in March. So I was like, it's all, and mind you, like I just got married in November of 2019. So I was like, this is fixing to be the fucking best year of my life. like, like I'm like, I'm married. My wife is fucking badass. Like we're about to launch this business. I'm gonna get to her level now. And then it just fucking all came crashing down. Like me and my son to me and my son got back to New Orleans the day it was named a global pandemic by the World Health Organization. And then all the custody shit and like business stalled and having a wife on the front line. Like this has easily been the worst year of my life. Easily. Like I don't even know how I could go. I mean, sorry, like I mean, people obviously are suffering. People don't have jobs. My friends' restaurants are closing. So many people have died. But with none of that stuff happening, like this has been the
The
worst year.
biggest challenge that
Yeah.
you've ever faced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 2020 was like going to be I had a lot of hope. Even with fucking Mr. Cheeto in office, like I was just like, fuck him. Like I'm not like, I mean, that just got worse and worse and worse by the like day in 2015, and then when he was elected and all that. But like I still had hope. And this year has been like, it's taken me like to some dark places because I think America just had no hope. Like America had no hope. I didn't have any hope because I was like, I'm going through a custody thing. My business is stalled. My wife is fucking like, my wife could like have COVID at any minute. Like, like I can get COVID. I'm Hispanic. I don't know if I have like, it's overwhelmingly affected Black and brown people more than white people. So it's like, what if I get it? Like, what if I fucking die? Like, it's it's been so rough.
Yeah, it's definitely been a challenge, especially from the media front. Where especially it seems as most of us had a lot of fear of stepping outside, interacting with people, and then we're sitting there probably consuming way more media than we ever have. I know I have. I know I've watched the news more than I ever have in my entire life because it's been a pivotal year.
Yeah.
And one thing that I've seen that it just gives me anxiety is the fact that we just didn't have a lot of people that were trying to bring us together, bring us all together, right?
Right.
It was seeming like because we're in an election year, it's all about further dividing people and figuring out what polarizing side you're on, and everyone having their centered beliefs on whether it be their own personal financial gains or
Right.
whether if this thing is real or shape shifting and conspiracies and like the list keeps on going on and on and on. But ultimately, we didn't see a lot this year. We didn't see a lot this year about people who are trying to bring people together. It was more being like, this side's wrong, this side's right, both sides feeling like they're right. And it's definitely weighed on a person like me who I look at myself as a neutral. I've
Right.
never really looked at myself as favoring either party. But ultimately, what I want to see is people to kind of just think more of like, okay, if you are a Democrat, or if you are a Republican, you should probably challenge your party even more right now.
Well, that's the thing too. I mean,
Challenge your party, because that's where you're going to have the most change. Like, you need to work harder at making sure they're doing the shit that they said that they were going to do, rather than just allowing them just to act all willy-nilly as soon as they get your vote.
well, that's the thing. Like one of the questions I asked a lot of people, so we did 10 episodes, and one of the people, and everyone overwhelmingly was like, of the Americans were like, I'm going to vote for Biden Harris. And I was like, okay, are you voting for Biden Harris, or are you voting against Trump? And almost everyone said, I'm voting against Trump. So it's like, Biden, like, I don't know what your plans are, but when I'm in my late 70s, I want to chill.
Thank you. I've said the same thing.
So the fact that he did this shit, like, of course, there's got to be so much ego involved with even thinking about running for president and shit. But like, that shit, are you a parent?
I am not a parent yet.
Okay. Just his kids dying and his wife dying and like the shit that man has been through. I was like, fuck, man. Like, I don't necessarily agree with all your policies. Kamala Harris used to be a cop, basically. So, like, she put people away for weed in California and shit.
My dad was a cop too. But...
No, my best friend is a cop. My
best friend's a cop. My best friend's black. My best friend's Hispanic. We're playing that game. No, I'm joking.
No, but it's just we could get to this. I'll make a point about that next. But like, I don't know. Like, am I super, super stoked about them? Not really.
Yeah.
Is it better than what we have? I think absolutely. Like, someone, and let's say,
bringing people together. If we can, we can at least say that if we can go a little bit more neutral on the discussions of not trying to rile people up, with context of words. Words are powerful, man.
They're the most powerful thing.
How I communicate with my clients and my friends and potential prospects would not be any words that would be not neutralizing or,
right.
Like I genuinely want to get to know people, and I couldn't do that by saying F you and it'd be okay to act a certain way. Yeah.
Well, just like, I think dad is the proudest title I have. But my second proudest is doctor's husband. So stealing a line from her, like, it's just like, it's fucking science. Like, believe in science. Like,
science and sociology too.
Yeah. It's just like, so the fact that we've had the last 4 years of not believing in science, not believing it, just, it's fucked up. Like, it's just.
Yeah, it's a big discussion when it even comes down to people who have science and religion as, they're like, you're either pro-religion or you're pro-science. It's like, can't you have both? Why can't you have both?
And just be like, you know what? How about just like be pro-good person?
Yes, pro-human.
Like, be pro-human, moral, ethical person.
Yeah.
Like, I don't give a fuck what you do. Like, do whatever you want, but just be.
And good and bad is very subjective, but I usually try to think about it as intent. Intention's good, intention of not just thinking about yourself.
Right.
Right. That intent has to come from thinking about someone else other than yourself,
Absolutely. 100%. And I think that Trump had made it very clear that all he cares about was his friends and himself and people like Jeffrey Epstein. And, it's funny because in 2015, I knew he was going to win because I was like, I was trying, and it's funny, I gauged it by like a very weird way, but I think it actually makes sense. Like 2015, I was traveling a lot, Midwest, the South, all these places, and I took a lot of Ubers. So I would always ask every driver, like, who are you going to vote for? And overwhelmingly, 95% were Trump. They're like, he's not a politician. He's not, he's a businessman. He'll get our country like straight. So I knew, like, in 2015 when he was elected, like I was obviously very disappointed, but I wasn't surprised. I knew things were going to change in America. I never knew it was going to be like this. I live in New Orleans, and I'll never forget it. Like, I was the day after the election, I was walking down a very popular street called Ferret Street. I can't remember where I was. I think I was maybe going to lunch or something. And I'll never forget the way this old white man looked at me. Like, it was like, oh, it's on now. Like I felt it. Like I felt it. I'll never forget that. I'll never forget how that felt. How like that, like just his look, like made me feel, you know. And it's like, I mean, I love New Orleans. It's a great city, obviously amazing food, amazing music, which which obviously are all not possible right now. But and people say that it's this liberal bubble and all this, and but like there's still a lot of fucking racism there. There's a lot of fucking racism. There's a lot. The South in general is just insane, and it's systemic racism.
Yeah,
like it is
someone's
normalized.
Always told you that you could believe a certain way and you're not wrong for believing a certain way, then why would it be wrong, right? I don't know if I would be any different if I were a white man who lived in the South. And how do you get cultured if you only stay within
right
group, and so that culture is really important, like that's why diversity really matters, is so we can introduce people to different stories, different backgrounds.
My son's daycare, I mean, it's a perfect example. And like I tried and wanted him to go to a really good school, and like after Katrina, New Orleans schools were really fucked up. So they have the charter system. Schooling is very hard, so you have to send your kid to private school, and it's a lot of money. And it's not that big of a deal, but like I was like, fuck, like there's like 20 kids in the class. He's Mexican. There's one black kid. Everyone else is white. And it's like, okay, like obviously I want my son to have the best education. I want him to, but like, damn, like what, I just, I don't know. Like the way I grew up in a very like urban area, is to put it kindly. I grew up a little bit outside of Chicago, and it's called East Chicago. And I actually did not go to school with a white person until 10th grade. Like it was the community was probably 99% African American and Hispanic. So like I mean, it was a rough neighborhood, and I don't know if it did more harm than good or whatever, but it definitely taught me that like America, whatever, is not white. It's not all white, like it is. So like it just, I mean, it definitely, I make fun of it. Like I always, because I think I have good thoughts, and I have good, I always ask my wife to like edit my like writing, because there's always mistakes. And I was like, oh, that's that hood public education, like for real. It was, like when you go to school, when you grow up in that sort of area, and I think that's why I'm so adamant about my son going somewhere really good. You're 5 steps behind, man, from the jump.
Yeah.
Like from the jump, like I'll never forget, like when I went to college, I was just like, fuck, like this, like, I mean, it was rough, man.
You felt like people knew things that you didn't. It made you feel inferior for a little while.
100%. 100%.
So yeah, I grew up in a town called Olathe, Kansas. Olathe Overland Park area of Kansas City, suburbs. My entire life,
Right.
with the exception that in the summers I would go and see my father, who lived in Philadelphia,
Okay.
and I would spend my time with my cousins who lived in the urban area. And so I had this code switch aspect of me where I was
switching. That's did Jay-Z like trademark that?
I don't know. I hope he doesn't dock me for this. But it was wild because like I was this kid who was looked at like, oh, you speak white, when I was in the urban environment, and then when I was in the black environment, I still wasn't like black enough, like whatever. It didn't matter where I was. I still didn't feel like I fit in to some degree, but I always was able to build relationships no matter what. And so I really got the best of both worlds because I was able to relate on every level, being able to see what it's like in a different environment and being able to, connect people in a different way. And so humor is one thing. Like I've always been a corny dude, and that's
some Fresh Prince of Bel-Air shit.
Yes, 100%. It's kind of funny you say that. My father actually grew up in the same neighborhood as Will Smith. They're around the same age. My dad's he's about 3 years older than him. My grandma and the Fresh Prince's mother. Yeah, they were friends. Yeah, mother.
It's funny you say that. It's like one of my friends, because that whole story is based off of Benny Medina's life.
Yes.
Right. And one of my friends here in LA is friends with the family who took Benny Medina in like an upscale LA neighborhood. So
wow.
It's
like the 7 Degrees of Kevin Bacon or something. I don't know, but we're talking Will Smith here.
Totally.
So yeah, like having that experience, it is really important to say that I'm a testament of diversity and inclusion, even within my own race, and being able to understand that like, backgrounds are different. And, like these stories that people having like, real shit that goes on in their lives where they can't figure out where they're going to eat, food insecurity, huge thing. Educational insecurity, huge thing. And not everyone can just bootstrap. Not everyone has that ability to really just uplift themselves up. And, I'm very fortunate that, my mom is well educated. My father is well educated. Me and my father don't have the best relationship. Matter of fact, there's really not a good relationship at all. But, he's been very successful for himself. And so there are role models, even if they're not the most positive in your life. But, ultimately, we need more diversity, more inclusion. And, I think right now, at least we have a little bit of hope that we can possibly get there again.
Is it okay if I ask you a question?
Yeah, go for it.
How do you think your lack of a relationship with your father has made you navigate in the world?
Man, one takeaway that I got from your guys' podcast, you and Miguel, was the fact that you guys said something along the line, I'm not sure if it was you or him, but it was something along the lines of the people who have had the most different, challenging experiences have made the most interesting people.
Miguel said that. Yeah.
Okay, Miguel said that. And I feel that way about myself. I feel like a mad scientist with all the things that I know, that my abilities, like the things that I've learned, going through resources and being more scrappy. I think that's what I've learned with the absence of not having that father in my my father in my presence. And, just Dude, and I can relate with you, man. I used to make stories up about my dad about how great he was, but
Isn't that why? You know,
what? Like we have this. This is like a sociology experiment. I think I could so relate with both of you on that. I'm like, why? Why did I do that? Why did I do that?
I mean, obviously, Miguel's white, but I mean, his name is Miguel, which I think is, again, we talk about it like just very different to navigate.
White with a hall pass, right?
Right. Yeah. It's just crazy. But like, I think that, you know, when I'm able, if I'm ever able to help like the community, I'm not going to say, you know, I was going to group, I was going to say black and brown men, but I don't want to speak for black men. Like, actually, you know what? I'll just speak for men. Men just need to get better.
Yeah.
Like we need to get better at the way we treat people. We have to get better at the way we navigate the world. We have to get better at the way we like have kids and the way we try and bring them up. Like, we just have to do better because we're fucking up.
Yeah, man. No, you're right. You're right. I believe that, you know, it's the fact that my father is the way he is. I know who he is. I think he just lacked the emotional intelligence. And, but, you know, ultimately it's kind of made him more successful for himself, right? He's able to be just on his own.
Did he have more kids or no?
No, just me. I think I'm the only child. I haven't seen him in like 3 years, but you know, every aspect about him has made me fucking awesome. You know, like my ability to love other people, like me being an only child, with an exception of my stepsister, who is like my sister now. I've been able to make.
How old were you when she was born?
She, we are 6 years apart. So when my mom married in '96, she would have been 4. Yeah, she was 4 at the time.
Got it.
But it took,
you guys really did grow up together,
dude. It took a long time for me to get to that point where I felt like she was really my sister, and but the nature of who I am, like I've been able to make friends like who they feel like brothers and sisters to me.
Yeah.
And so I revere people to a higher degree, you know, like it's just like I believe it's so innate that it came from someone who was very absent, the father in my life who's been to 3 of my football games, and when he showed up, he was late. And you know, missing out on all those good parts and being 1,500 miles away. And, you know, it takes a while to like think back and relive those experiences and say like, you know what, that was the best that he could do. I can't really fault him.
Right.
And I know that my mom did the best that she could do. And so there's no blame game at all. It's just like, you are who you are sometimes. And, you know, for the most part, I made it out pretty good. So I think my personality and all these good things, I got some good, exceptional qualities from him. Some of the bad qualities, I definitely have still looked at myself and say, hey, you need to work on these things. But, you know, ultimately, you know, like, I think it was probably the best thing that could have happened. You know, him being with my mother, it would have been like,
you would have just had a horrible marriage example.
I could have been a cold person, you know, I could have been a cold person, and I'm a warm, loving person. And so, you know, I think I turned out all right, you know.
Seems like it.
Thank you. I try. You know, I definitely, I got more tattoos than my mom really wanted me to get. And, and I swear a little bit more than she's ever allowed me to in her household, but ultimately I am who I am, you know, and, you know, even our brand, you know, so Positive People Posse, we're a digital marketing company, but like for us, it's all about relationships. You know, if I don't have a relationship with you, I don't want you to give me money. And money's not going to feel good. When money gets exchanged and you don't like someone and you don't feel like they're going at it, you know, like helping you out, you know, then it just doesn't who wins from that, you know? And so relationships are being built, but we also understand like everyone's got a story, everyone's got a past, you know? I think that's what makes these entrepreneurs that listen to us.
Right.
I think they keep on listening because they know that their minds are kind of fucked up too, you know, like for some reason there's something wrong with you being an entrepreneur. I think it's one of the most crazy things you can be is going into business and not knowing what could happen. I mean, it's
just,
sick
you
thing.
know, I try and think about like things from like as a kid, you know, like I like what were things that like what's the word I'm looking for? Were there any signs, right? Like that I can pinpoint on like why I I have to do my own thing.
Yeah.
Like I have to create, like I can't work for someone else. And I honestly, this is probably from not having a father figure and not doing this and whatever, you know, but I think the most like the biggest like thing in my mind is that I hate being told what to do.
I agree. But you like collaborating and you like working
Oh
with
yeah,
people, right?
yeah. 100%.
But as soon as someone has a hierarchy over you, it makes you feel a different way, right?
Like
I agree.
I always hated it. Like I always hated like, and that's why like I've worked at some of the best restaurants in the country, like militant fucking restaurants where like people are screaming and yelling at you, and I'm just like, I was like militant.
Have to be like this? Yeah.
I was militant too, and I would just be like wave them, like it would just again, like I couldn't, I still can't like really wrap my head around like.
So from a leadership standpoint, what type of leader are you? Do you get flustered and everyone has to feel the wrath of what Mr. Torres is going through? Or is it more like you're very direct to the point, like everyone's like a team player to some degree, but they understand?
Yeah, we have a very again, I'm right now with given what happened this year with COVID, like it's me and my business partner, and now basically my wife as well. So we have not had the chance to build out a team yet. We have a huge list of consultants that we've worked with, the freelancers. I have managed restaurants before. I never was an angry person. I never was like, do this, this is my way, like, don't, like, I was never about that style of management or leadership, or just even really like you said, human. Like,
Yeah.
like it's not my vibe. Like I'm pretty chill. Don't get, there are some situations that I've been in my life, but those are more like personal stuff where I have gotten angry and mad, and I've been in fights before, like, so like it's, but work wise, I don't think that that's the way I want to do things,
Yeah, man, I totally agree. I've been there, I've been in the fighting aspect. It's amazing to even look back, on my life and say like, I was never really even an angry person, but I did get myself into some fights back in the day. I don't know what that was. I don't know why, but that subsided, and that's no longer. It hasn't been my nature for north of a decade, but yeah.
It's something I said in the Miguel interview, and we're talking about dads and all, or lack thereof. I'd always be like, I went to therapy when I was like I can't remember, I was like 9 or 10 years old or whatever, and the therapist is like, you're all never gonna trust people, like you're never, because you've never met your father. And I was just like, what? Like, obviously I think medicine and the way we that people interact with children is a lot different, I hope.
Yeah.
But what adult says that to a 10-year-old kid, 10-year-old kid?
The thing for you to remember.
Right.
It's so weird, those flashbacks that we have,
I can literally, I remember, like, if I blink or close my eyes, I can see the couch. I could see her. Like, it was such an impactful comment in my life. Like, I can see it still.
Yeah.
And it's just like, why, what? Like, what good does that do telling a fucking preteen kid?
When I'm driving down the street, sometimes I really think about, maybe I see a reminder or something about my past. But it's amazing how emotions and thoughts come back.
Oh,
You
yeah.
relive being a kid, and you're like, oh, maybe that was a weird experience. That wasn't normal, or am I the only one who thinks this way? It's.
I still remember the first time I lied about my dad. Like, I was in a classmate's car, a classmate's father's car, and he was asking me who my dad was, what his name was, and there was just like a flood of like heat that went to my body because I was so ashamed and I was so embarrassed. And I was raised by my mom and by my grandparents, and like I just said my grandfather's name, and I'm sure, I mean, I don't know those people anymore, but like, if I would love to see what he thought, because I'll never forget the look on his face. Like,
Yes.
like,
well, the thing is, probably didn't think much of it, and a lot of times my last guest that I had, it was this guy named Paul Long. His episode comes out tomorrow. Listening audience, it's already out. But we talked about like the fact that sometimes we feel like people know something that but they don't know anything. They only know what they know, right? But internally, we deal with these internal thoughts of not feeling less than and not good enough.
Right.
Like, and so you want to give it your best sometimes, and people don't even know what that really is. But whatever you felt like you had to cover up, you thought it was a standard. You thought everyone was normal. You thought everyone was normal, and you're the only one who's not normal, right?
Well, that's the thing too, right? Like, again, referencing the Miguel podcast, like, going your way, like, being and I think it's harder now, but like, being a child, it's not easy, right? Like, it certainly was not easy for me. And like, I don't know. Again, we talk about it a lot, and it's just like, having to think that it's okay and that you have to lie just sets such a bad precedent in your head. And like, I'm still like not, like, I've been unpacking that for a long time, and probably will continue to unpack it, like, again, I do think kids should experience some struggle, like, if their life is easy, like, what do they know? What are they prepared for in this world, right? But like, fuck, man. Like,
no, I get it, man. I get it. So, just bringing it all back in, we unpacked a lot. No, I really appreciate your authenticity and your transparency. I feel like a lot of people constantly feel like they have to just have this bravado, everything's all right, and Positive People Posse Living Rooms talking about the good, the bad, the ugly, and uplifting. It's really important for all of us to know that, like, you got to hone in on some of the areas that you've been insecure about.
Right.
Right. And then totally. But this has actually got you to that path of, like, figuring out what you want to do with your life. Right. And making sure that you're not working for someone else, right? Like, I think it's within your nature because of that,
right.
Because of insecurity. Insecurity has been the mechanism to get you, to this point, so it's like, it's something that you can really appreciate, like, it's like, we're all a little fucked up, right?
You're definitely not wrong about that. Insecurity I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm convinced that like, especially like after this Trump presidency and just like the way life has happened, like I'm like so convinced that like 90% of the world's problems start with bad parenting.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. It's like when you
But think about it. Like most parents, okay, how old are you? I'm not sure how old you are.
35.
35. You and I are the exact same age. I'm turning 35 this month.
Oh, awesome. Happy
So,
birthday. What date? What date?
The 21st.
Okay, my son's is the 28th.
Okay. So he's got like a Thanksgiving birthday. I'm a Scorpio.
A Scorpio. Okay, yeah.
You know, the way I think about it, every year that I turn another year older, I think about like my mom being at this age or my father being at this age. And I'm like, wow, I really didn't know shit, you know, or, you know, like they were kids, you know, I feel like a kid, like I'm a big kid, if anything. Like I've got this, this innate nature about me that I still go skateboard, you know, like if I want to do something, I'm going to go do it. I've jumped out of an airplane probably like 25 times.
Damn.
You know, like if I want to do something, I do it. Just not just because of the thrill of it. It's just because I'm curious.
Yeah.
And I think about these adults being parents and them having to have like all of this responsibility and thinking like, okay, I'm responsible for this child right here. And I feel like a child. You know, like I don't know when that goes away, but you know, can we fault people for only knowing what they know to some degree? Because the parenting is just being passed down generation to generation, and so we're expecting that, you know, each generation is getting better. You would hope,
right?
But sometimes it's not the case. You know,
I think that for me, because I mean, I agree with you. Like I'm still. Oh, well, actually, I mean, 2020 has made me feel like more of an adult than ever. I'm not going to say that I sometimes
that is true.
That I don't feel like a big kid anymore. But I don't know. Like I don't ever want to grow up, you know.
Nor do
I. I think there was a chef that from Spain, and he one of his like famous quotes or one-liners is he was just like, never stop thinking like a child, like always be curious. And I've kind of tried to like hang on to that, you know. I mean, this year has definitely challenged me with that quite a bit, but like it is important, you know, to always be curious, to always be a student, to always like when you stop learning and you stop growing, right? Grow or
100%.
die. Like
100%, you know, like that aspect of where people are discontent, complacent, all the above, and they're just like sitting there, just like thinking that like, okay, what's next? It's my paycheck. That is not something that I really care for. You know, like I'm a risk taker. I'm a person who believes that, you know, in fact, I can bring some sort of change to the world around me, at least. And I think, like you said before, you know, like everyone's worthy of like 3 big ideas, right? And you know, putting ourselves in position to not only just help ourselves out, we definitely have to help ourselves to help other people. But I think that's what really keeps me very youthful, is knowing that like, hey man, the ideas and the possibilities can be endless if you think within that nature, within that aspect. And it's also helped us with a lot of our clients. You know, like you said, you are the engine that makes your business go. You know, it's the same thing with me. It's like, hey, there's a lot of possibilities in marketing. I love the possibilities that we can do with marketing. We've got a really cool client right now, and I'm not going to say what their business name is, but it is it's a flower business, but they're doing a monthly subscription, and there's adult accessories that go within the box and stuff. So they receive the flowers, and there's adult things.
That's a great idea.
and I'm
that's
so
awesome.
pumped. Yes, it is awesome. And I'm like, he goes, is this crazy? I'm like, yes, but let's do some fun things, like let's make this fun, like I'm super excited to do something different that's not normal.
Right.
And so if we can continue to push ourselves in different ways that, just makes life not so monotonous, that's what I love to gravitate towards, doing something that is a different experience,
Well, that's the thing.
keeps you young.
Yeah, and it's something I say to my wife and other people is like, I mean, I hope, I hope honestly, like my goal is to one day just permanently feel differently than this, but like I think it's really important for people to be uncomfortable. Like
Yes.
I think it's important in business. I think it's important, like obviously we see here now to have with Black Lives Matter and everything to have these uncomfortable conversations. But I think it's so important. Like if you don't like push yourself out of your comfort zone, you're never gonna learn anything.
Dude, you got to pivot. And, even with like BLM and everything that's going on in politics, it's all translated to different aspects of our business. I mean, it's not avoidable,
Right.
At this point in time, when we are in quarantine, we are in pandemic, and there's all these things that dictate our future, you can't avoid any of these things. And so, it's definitely
Which we shouldn't, right?
No, we shouldn't. And I think it's been accepted before. It's like, well, you don't discuss politics, you don't do this, and religion. It's like, to some degree, I do believe that. I think there's a time and place. I think there's a level of respect that we all need to have for one another. And I can have conversations with anyone without fully believing and adopting everything that they have to say because they read a statistic somewhere. But I can also just have like a regular conversation, and it's like, okay, I'll listen. I don't need to be angry. You don't have to get me angered in order for a point to be heard. Or I'm not your enemy. It's not Bloods versus Crips. Like I'm chilling. Like all I want to do is like continue to help people and better my business and better my my legacy.
Right.
I want to be able to retire at a young age, but always be working.
Do you want the whole wife or partner, kids situation?
I think about that sometimes, and as much if it's within my time and my scope, and if a person can make me better, if she can make me a better human being, and I find that innately, yes. But at the same time, I don't know if it's like my time to decide if and when that happens.
Right.
I think I'm just a learner, a lifelong learner, and I could definitely see myself raising a kid one day. And so, I mean, I think it's probably one of the most, like you said, probably would be one of the most proud titles to have, right? And the most egotistical thing that I could think of is, having my own offspring and thinking that he's going to bring apart some change to this world and, carry the name.
It's so funny. Like, I remember when I had my son, one of my buddies texted me and he was like, obviously, congratulations, but he's like, now you'll live forever. And like, I thought about that a lot, and I was just like, I don't know. I that's like a tricky, I think that having like 3, 4, 5 kids, that I would like is like egotistical. I think that's a strain on the fucking earth.
Thank you.
but wanting to have one kid or adopting kids.
Yes.
I think that's
yes. I'm all about adoption. I'm all about adoption. I definitely I think it's sick that adoption is a business, but
I agree with that 100%.
I feel like I want to give people a deserving opportunity. If I can make someone else's life better, I feel the same sentiments. Like you said, if you could pay for someone to go get this experience that they never had or whatever it may be, that's such a humbling thought, right?
Yeah. It's important. Yeah. I think that we can, if like if we can get to a place in the world where people, because everyone takes, right? Everyone
Yeah.
takes.
Dude, I
But if
said
we,
this all the time. It's like all we do is take. We don't give back to the planet. We don't give back to
right,
people. We're freaking savages, man.
right. But if we could get to a point where people give more than we take,
Yes.
like that would make the world a different, better place, you know? Like, I mean, Mother Nature is so mad at us right now. Like, you know,
Yeah.
like just like the fires here in California. I mean, there's a like I don't know if it's a tropical storm or hurricane headed towards Miami right now. Like the the hurricanes that just hit New Orleans. Like obviously Corona, you know, COVID. Like the Earth is pissed, and it's because we fucking have done some fucked up shit for a long time, and people have gotten super rich off of it, and they don't give a fuck.
All we do is take, man. We need less assholes, more assets. Like I just try to think about, like what type of contributions can we make, and I think people are solely reliant on someone else doing the job. If I pay this person, then they can do this. Gosh, man, it's always someone else's problem, right? Until it becomes ours.
Right, right. I mean, again, I think at least for in America's um, sphere or globe, whatever, like the Trump presidency revealed a lot about racism and how people really feel. And honestly, like just the fact that 70 million people voted for him is like fucking mind blowing. It's mind blowing, but it's not surprising. But it's also very disheartening. I don't like. I don't know. Like just moving forward, like what do you know? I am very much a believer in like act locally, think globally, sort of thing. Or I don't know if did I reverse that or whichever one.
Yeah, no.
But like we gotta just start doing better.
I'm just all about love and uplifting and just being able to give back when I can and however I can. You just got to think with good intent, good intention. I think that at least think about, like, if you say hi, how are you doing to someone, that
Right.
changes someone's life right
Right.
there. I mean, whether if you want to acknowledge it or not, like if you were to tell them F you, what would happen? You just made that person's day bad and miserable. So if
Right.
I can uplift more people than I do, detracting from
About
their
you. Right.
happiness, we're making some change in this world. And so let's get back to your business. So obviously you've had some shifts during the pandemic. What are you forecasting for this next year? What are you guys going to do? Seems like the pandemic, COVID's might be here until we get our vaccine. It looks like some things are happening. I'm not sure if you're going to take the vaccine or not, but things can be looking up. We don't know what it looks like 6 months from now, but what are you going to do in the next year?
Well, I will say I'm a little concerned. I don't know if you saw this, and I just saw it this morning, but like the Brazil, like, do you see the Brazilian government, like, just like strongly discontinued their human trial. Thank you very much. Just strongly discontinued their human trials, and they wouldn't even. They're like because some people had some really bad effects, and like they wouldn't even mention them. So it's like,
Whoa.
okay, there's that, and then my wife was reading about the American trial, the Pfizer, and I, I'm not going to say a number because I like don't quote me, and I don't want to say the wrong thing, but it was a pretty like big number. A lot of the people said that they felt like they had the worst hangover they've ever had after taking it. Which I don't know if you drink, but hangovers suck a lot.
Yeah.
So we will not, for sure, be taking the first generation of vaccinations.
I came down with COVID myself. This was back in end of August, or no, early September. It was early September. I went back home to visit Kansas City. And within like the first week that I was there, I came down with COVID. And, I will say that everyone experiences it completely different. I was very fortunate that, it didn't affect me to a big degree. I am more on the side of a believer that, like it is a hangover. I had 3 weeks afterwards, I did not feel like myself. I didn't feel
Really?
spry.
Really?
I didn't have the cognitive thinking. There was a lot of things that that weren't registering with me quick enough.
Right.
And I definitely.
See, that's fucking so scary. See, that's so scary.
Yeah.
Like,
it's like my thinking. Like my mind is everything that I have. Like. It's your brain is the controller of your limbs, being able to nervous system and all of that. And so for me to be impacted by that, me having so much energy always, I definitely felt like there was something it took a lot longer than I expected and anticipated.
Did you
and I felt like I played it safe. I mean, I've been living in New York all this time, and wearing masks and making sure that I'm doing my best that I can, and still got it. So going back to Kansas City changed everything.
Hey.
All right, we are back.
All right.
Sorry, listening audience. We had some technical difficulties, but Steven Torres is back.
Hey, sorry about that, guys.
Hey, don't apologize. Things happen. Yeah, we were basically just talking about how I came down with COVID. Yeah. Everything was all good, and but I ended up, having some brain funk for about 3 weeks and bounced back. But like I think my outlook on the world and life actually improved, because after you battle a sickness, and you're like, wow, man, like that's what it feels like to be sick, where you have no control over something.
Right.
And then you're like, man, you're so appreciative of like your health. Like health is something that we sleep on way too often.
So you definitely have antibodies, at least for a little bit, right?
A little bit, yeah. I got like a month and a half left. So
have they came up with like the official, like how long, or is it just, it's different every person?
Yeah, I think it's different with everyone. It's nothing that I can solely rely on. Still have to play it safe. So
yeah, I traveled. I mean, I used to travel half the year before COVID, and the lockdown from March to, for me, June was the longest ever consecutively I had been in New Orleans. And it was really weird. But the first time I got on a plane was in June, and I went to LA, and my wife was like, "You're fucking crazy. Like you are crazy. Like you get back and you're going to quarantine and all this stuff." And like, it just, it's a crazy new world. And, I mean, also one of my buddies in New Orleans, he had it early on in March, and him and his wife, they both had it. And she tested positive, or he tested positive for antibodies, and she did it.
Wow. She's like, where have you been?
Right.
What have you been doing? You've been cheating on me.
Like, that's insane,
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's I mean, I think that from what people are saying, at least, sometimes I don't know if it's like I'm fortunate or not fortunate in that, like, my wife is obviously, I mean, her like 3 specialties is she's a pulmonologist, an intensivist, and an ER doc. So like she's been in it since the beginning, and
wow.
I hear, all the stuff like about, the antibodies and reinfection and all this stuff like that. But like not the 1918 flu, which obviously we know like killed like 30 million people. There was a flu right before that is now like the common flu. Like it's just been, it's gone through so many cycles in like humans and populations. So it's like we're going to live with COVID.
Yeah.
Like
And so
it is.
it affects your business. And so, I mean, so you've kind of factored this kind of being around and.
Yeah. Like we are the mezcal, we're doing a liqueur. It's a very on-premise thing. It's like bars, restaurants, like that was the plan. And sadly, like a lot of my friends have had to close their businesses, which is fucking awful. So we're pivoting a little bit. This trip that I'm on now, like we were doing a sales trip. So like I was still able to sell to people in Miami, in New York, in Chicago, San Francisco, LA. But the goal now is to kind of pivot to try and do a couple ready to drink options.
Okay.
That is a little bit more home like friendly. Like just pop open a can, pop open a bottle, pour and drink. So that's the way we're pivoting in that. Obviously, like with the podcast, like feel very fortunate to be able to talk to amazing people like you, like Miguel.
Thank you.
And then we actually just shot a show as well in Oaxaca that we're pitching to a couple of different networks.
Awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I think everyone, obviously, well, not obviously, but a lot of people right now have. I know I do. What's the word I'm looking for? Cabin fever, right? Like
yeah.
They're like we don't feel safe traveling, but we want it. So like, it's very much. I can't give away too much about it, but it's very much based on like the places I've been, the people I've met, the hotels I love, like kind of incorporating all of that travel stuff. So.
I love it. When we can get back to a little bit of norm, I think what I'll do is we'll try to get you on as a guest for the taco talks, because mezcal goes with tacos. And I mean, I'm assuming that you love tacos as much as I do, but I appreciate all tacos, from vegan to whatever. Like, I love the differences of tacos, street tacos to Tex-Mex and all of it.
It's so funny. I literally had tacos before this interview.
Oh, you did? Gosh, man,
like,
it's Tuesday.
Oh yeah, totally. But we went to this Mexican restaurant on Sunset that I used to go when I was like 10, 15 years ago. And they have this huge sign. It's like, no mask, no taco.
That's what I'm talking about.
I was like, that's awesome.
It's like, not trying to be political. It's not political. It's just science. We're just trying to, keep the spread down.
Right.
And so how can everyone find you? Get whatever off your chest right now. Address the public, let them know how to follow you and, the things that you guys have coming up. So let it rip.
Yeah. So right now, it's going to be a very abbreviated launch for the mezcal liqueur that we've been developing for 4 years. So we'll be available at amazing places in Miami, in New York City, in Chicago, San Francisco, LA. When working, obviously Louisiana and New Orleans, and we're working on Texas, DC, and Denver. Again, I mean, I don't even know if it's the right answer or the wrong answer, but hopefully there's not another shutdown. Obviously, we want everyone to be safe. We want everyone to feel comfortable. So yeah, I don't know what the right answer is with that. Should there be a shutdown? Should there not be? But we will be available in those places. And we're recording season 2 of the podcast in January. We're going to do like a residency at this hotel and just like stay there and record the episodes and like chill and do all these kind of like creative, like very art forward projects that I'm also really super excited about. And then the show, which will not be like mezcal related. We also don't even, it's an untitled project right now, but we're so excited about that. Like I actually had a meeting yesterday with my mentor, who is the only mentor I've ever had in my life. But he participated in my conference last year, and it was in October. And I also was very lucky, very fortunate to have a gentleman by the name of Alan Hughes come. And Alan is like, he directed Menace to Society and like
Oh,
amazing,
wow.
amazing director. But the most recent thing he did was he directed a documentary called The Defiant Ones about
Yes.
Dr. Dre and
Yeah.
Jimmy Iovine's, rise to fame. And so like I put them two on a not podcast, on a panel where we just talked about like creativity and timelessness and all this stuff like that. And one of the things that my mentor Will said was like, he said to Alan, he's like, I'm jealous of you. He's like, because you created something that will live forever. Like people will always be able to access it. He's like, people who experience my hospitality and my, like the come to dinner at my restaurants and stuff, they like, it's just in their memory. It's not a
It's all
thing.
about experience, isn't it?
Right.
Like you go to a restaurant and the food could be subpar, but like the experience that you have makes the food even better.
Totally. But what I said, like, this is going to be my like live forever thing.
I love
like,
that.
This show will be the thing that like you were talking about legacy, right? Like,
yeah,
that's what I'm interested in, and doing really awesome stuff that positively affects people's lives and can be accessed and viewed by almost anyone.
If you ever need a guest sidekick, man, just holler at me.
Dude, yeah, no, we're definitely, I know that this is not going to be the last conversation we
Dude,
have.
I love it. And last but not least, actually, go ahead, give your handles first, and then I'm going to ask you one more question before we wrap up.
So I basically just have Instagram, and it's at Criollo de Oaxaca. And yeah, it's
for your listening and the viewing audience, you can read it across the screen, and then I'll have the link below because I don't even know.
Yeah, that's a lot. It's so funny because my email is s@criollodeoaxaca.com, and every hotel reservation, every single person who I have to I've gotten so good at Navy or whatever, Army call signs.
Yes.
I'm like Criollo Charlie R Roger, and they're like, damn, that's really long. And I was like, I know, but you'll remember it, huh? And they're like, yeah, I'll never freaking use this one. So
two questions. They're kind of the same, but what is your biggest weakness? And then we're going to get to your superhero power. So go with your weakness first, and then we'll get to the super duper next.
I think my biggest weakness, honestly, which again, like I mentioned, over the last few years of working on, is I think my biggest weakness is I think for a long time, I've let the past dictate who I was. And I mean that in a negative way.
Yeah.
I've let me not having a father, I've let me growing up in the fucking ghetto with no rules and no fucking I've let all these things adversely affect my life, and I've ruined relationships, I've ruined jobs, I've done all these things that have hurt me. It's hurt me, and I can trace it back to it's because this and this and that, whatever, but it doesn't make it right.
Yep.
But since my son was born, which was definitely the turning point in my life, that is when I was like, okay, every day I'm going to try and be better. I'm going to try and learn from my mistakes, not make them again, and make whole new mistakes.
Yeah, man, I love that.
But don't hurt. Again, how we were talking.
Better mistakes.
better mistakes, and like and don't hurt people, right? Like that.
Like that, like being honest about that. Like I think that's like, a lot of people don't realize, hurting people, that you just go about their lives and kind of tend to forget that they left people behind, So
but trauma is real.
Yeah, man.
Trauma is a real thing. And
hurt people.
I say that all the time to my wife. Literally. I say that to her all the time. No, yeah. And trauma is a real thing and everyone deals with it differently. But like, again, like since my son was born, I want to give more than I take. And I definitely do not want to add any trauma to anyone's life.
I respect that. And so your superhero power, what is it now?
I think that I just like, I don't know. I think I'm very good at relating to people, because I genuinely like sometimes I'm very cynical and sometimes I'm like, fuck this and fuck people and fucking, especially after this year, and just like the selfishness of not wearing a mask and just the way that like the South is, like it's just.
And I heard that in your podcast. Like I felt the cynicism from time to time. I don't really look at it as a negative thing. I feel
right. And
I feel like, positivity is very subjective in the way that I look at it and the way I want it to be, is like relatable, being honest, authentic. And, some things just suck sometimes. You just have to.
And I think that if I don't know, like being completely honest with myself, like, and again, like I said, like I like to be cynical and I like to pretend that I don't like ultimately, like I think people are terrible and this and that. But like when I'm honest with myself, I know that I actually like really fucking care about people.
That's so funny. Yeah, I can totally see that. I read people really well, and so I tend to see the good in a lot of people, and that's how I took it. So someone else, like me listening to your podcast, and Miguel said something about like he's like, well, I'm very optimistic in the sense that things are getting better. And you're like, fuck that, I don't.
Yeah.
And it's like, but you're entitled to feel that way, and it's not. You're not wrong. You're not necessarily right. But in a sense, like when I think about how things have progressed, I will say that if I went back 100 years, I would not want to live in society 100 years ago. So,
dude, I don't know if it wasn't the Miguel interview, but it was someone's interview and in this season, and I literally said what you said, like,
oh really?
I could not operate in this world, not even 100 years ago, but fucking 50 years ago, probably 20 years, 30 years ago. Like I could not be married to a white woman. I could not have my own business. It
is getting a little bit better.
For sure.
It's not as fast as we want change to happen sometimes, but overall, I can say, even 20 years ago, I wouldn't want to be my age now doing what I'm doing at my, 20 years ago. So
100%.
So, yeah, man. I mean, there's a positive we left with. Good note.
And hopefully, like you and me and, we'll continue to strive for change.
Dude, hey, I'm all about people who are about people. So, you'll probably get a dumb gift or something from me, but it means that I'm thinking about you or something, or something a conversation that we had. So, I would love to continue to connect in, any way that we can help support another entrepreneur like yourself. I'm all about it. We've got a nice audience of 17,000 email subscribers. Hopefully you guys are tuning in and listening to this entire interview. But we urge